everyone, it's Alexis with Project Management Made Simple. In this video, I'm going to be addressing the anti-pattern where the Scrum Master tells the Scrum team what features to build and how to build those features. So if you want to hear more, then keep watching and let's get started. So when I hear this anti-pattern, there's a lot of alarms that go off in my mind, a lot of ideas of why this could be happening. And one of those ideas is that if this has been or is currently a project manager who has now stepped into a Scrum Master role but hasn't had enough coaching, either they have not had enough coaching or the wider organization has not had enough coaching, well then there's going to be some of that legacy behavior that we see with traditional project managers. Some of the responsibility of traditional project managers is to, well really the sole responsibility is to drive the project to success and to completion, right? And so with that, there becomes these implied behaviors of really taking more of a directing style of leadership rather than servant leadership, because the responsibility of the success or the failure ultimately falls into the project manager. However, when we move into agile environments, we see that responsibility being distributed amongst the team. And more specifically within the Scrum environment, when we are talking about the responsibility of what is to be built, that lies with the product owner, and the how lies with the team. And so this becomes an opportunity to discuss further why these responsibilities do lie with these different roles versus remaining with one individual. So when we talk about the what and why it's important that the product owner owns this responsibility, well, we know that the product owner is to be the voice of the customer. And part of working within any agile framework is to seek to increase business value and to be customer focused and customer driven. That is a very big part of taking on the agile mindset. And so it makes the most sense for the product owner as the voice of the customer to own this responsibility. Similarly, when we talk about how features are to be built, it makes the most sense for those who are building it, the developers, to make those decisions, because they're going to know the nuances, the ins and outs, what's going to be most sustainable, what makes the most sense to do that, versus having someone from the outside tell them how they need to build the features. And the Scrum Master is there to coach the team on the Scrum process and to help them uncover and understand any patterns that are hindering their success at adapting Scrum and, the wider agile mindset as a whole. And so with all of that, it sounds simple that, that these responsibilities are outlined to these various roles within the Scrum framework. However, if we're witnessing this anti-pattern where the Scrum Master is telling the team what and how to build, there can be a variety of reasons that this is happening. As I mentioned, it could be that this was a project manager before, and now they're stepping into this role, but they haven't had enough coaching, or the stakeholders haven't had enough coaching. It could be that there is not a product owner present. And so now this person is in a position where they are kind of forced to play two roles. Now I have my own opinion that I do not think that if a team wants to be successful in using the Scrum framework, that having one individual play multiple roles, I don't think that that works. But so it could be if there's not a product owner or if there's not enough developers, when you have someone wearing multiple hats, it complicates the situation and it causes the conflict of interest, right? There's going to be some natural healthy tension amongst the team where you have the product owner determining the what and the team determining the how, because ultimately there's going to need to be over and over those conversations of what's feasible, and what is going to be the most valuable. And so that's also part of the reason why these responsibilities lie within these different roles, so that you can have that healthy tension and ultimately build the best product that can be built. So when we see this dynamic happen, we want to also understand what are the environmental factors that are contributing to this. So do we have stakeholders that are continuing to come to this person as they have before, continuing to come to this Scrum Master and asking things like when something will be completed and what's the status on this, and what are the risks and issues? If they are constantly coming to this one person, well then we want to be able to have that information and make sure that it's transparent to those stakeholders. But also in breaking that dynamic may require a little bit of coaching for the stakeholders as well. So this becomes, in my mind, kind of a wider conversation when we talk about agile journeys and agile transformation journeys. Specifically, from what I've seen, some organizations will choose to complete their agile transformation journey, starting with at the team level and then going outwards. And so if we are kind of in a silo and in a bubble where we're using our Scrum delivery framework, but we have stakeholders who are not privy to that, and they still have these questions of, schedule, scope, budget, and quality, but they don't understand how that dynamic will now shift, hopefully for the better, then they're going to continue to come to the person that they've seen as the project manager. And quite frankly, in their mind, they'll probably just think, I don't care what it is, I don't care what you all are calling this delivery model, I have these questions, right? So then that becomes an opportunity to coach the stakeholders on how to receive the information that they need to receive. Another way of looking at this anti-pattern is to look at what is happening with the team. As I mentioned before, is there a product owner that's present? If there's a product owner that's been assigned to the team, but they don't understand their role, or there's developers assigned to the team, but also they don't understand their role, then this becomes a coaching opportunity to coach the product owner on what's required of them. I've seen it where sometimes product owners are super busy and they kind of just, lob something over to the team. Something that happened historically where you have someone who's representing the voice of the customer and they're so used to just sending over a requirement document to IT or to the consultant and just say, okay, yeah, just build it and then we'll talk later. So that is something else to explore, is what is the dynamic with the product owner? Do they understand what their responsibility is? And similarly with the developers, if the developers are used to just taking marching orders, right? They're given something to work on and they're told have it done by this date, it becomes a very different conversation when we are now treating the developers as the experts that they are, and instead coming to them and asking them, how long do you think this is going to take? Does this seem feasible? Is this, something that is able to be built, right? And within the allocated time that maybe it's been requested. So it changes the conversation and the dynamic when we embrace this agile mindset. And I think that that's something that is not always talked about as much when we are moving towards Scrum, moving towards any agile framework, is that now a lot of the power that was coming from the top in terms of how things are built and even what is built, that now gets distributed to the team. And so it's kind of flipping the power structure on its head. Whereas before, maybe you had a technical project manager who did own these responsibilities, and now instead saying, nope, we're going to distribute these out, it becomes sometimes, a bit of pressure for these individuals and for these team members who have maybe never worked in this environment before. And it actually, I think, creates an interesting dynamic and a lot of respect for project management, because now those kinds of responsibilities, now that they're living within these different roles, then these different roles get an opportunity to really take apart each of the responsibilities and hopefully execute them to be as effective as they can be. As I mentioned, the product owner, it makes sense for the what to live with them, and the how, it makes sense to live with the developers. This was a video examining the potential reasons why a Scrum Master may be telling the team what and how to build. As I mentioned earlier, these are two responsibilities that are to lie with different roles within the Scrum team. And so in this can become something that is quite overwhelming, for the Scrum Master to think about. If this has been a product owner who has had these responsibilities before, it can be quite scary, feeling like you're losing, a lot of what it is that you do. And so this is why I would coach Scrum Masters, especially who have been traditional project managers, to take a look at my video where I talk about those mindset shifts that are required to go from being a project manager to being a Scrum Master. And so, as is the case with any of these anti-patterns that I examine with you all, it's important to talk with the team, get with them and understand why they think this is happening. Have those frank conversations in your retrospectives so that you can break any of these patterns that you're witnessing. I want to thank you all for watching this video. If you enjoyed it, please do give this video a thumbs up and feel free to leave any questions below in the comments, and I will talk to you all in my next video.